There comes a moment when you realize that being the strong one means being the invisible one. You've been holding everyone else together, showing up when they fall apart, answering every call at 3 a.m., carrying weight that isn't yours because someone has to. Your shoulders are broad enough. Your calendar is flexible enough. Your heart is willing enough. But somewhere in the quiet, you notice something that stings more than you expected. Your phone stays silent when you're struggling. The people you check on never think to check on you. The assumption that you're fine has become so automatic that no one questions it anymore. You don't speak about it. You simply carry your own weight in private, tend your own wounds in silence, and wonder if anyone would notice if one day you just stopped being strong. Many people live this way, not because they want to be isolated or because they enjoy suffering alone, but because they learned early that being needed is safer than needing. That being the helper means you'll never be abandoned. That strength is your value, and vulnerability is a luxury you can't afford. So you became the pillar. You became the one everyone leans on. You became so good at holding space for others that no one remembers you need space too. Over time, being strong stops being a choice and becomes your identity. The role you play becomes the cage you live in. And the people who love you start to love the version of you that never breaks, never asks, never admits when the weight is too much. They don't see you anymore. They see what you do for them. You tell yourself it's fine, that you don't need what others need, that strength means self-sufficiency. But underneath, there's a loneliness that has no name. A quiet exhaustion from being everyone's foundation while having nowhere to rest yourself. The Stoics understood something subtle about strength and suffering. True strength was never about bearing everything alone. It was about knowing what is within your control and what isn't, including the responsibility you take on that was never yours to carry. Marcus Aurelius, who governed millions and still found himself profoundly alone in his duties, wrote something that echoes across centuries. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't telling you to carry everything. He was reminding you that you can't control whether others see your struggle, only whether you continue pretending it doesn't exist. The Stoics didn't celebrate suffering in silence as nobility. They recognized it as a misunderstanding of what strength actually means. We confuse being strong with being invulnerable. We think that because people depend on us, we can't depend on anyone. We believe that admitting we're tired, overwhelmed, or breaking will somehow disqualify us from being worthy of love. So we perform strength long after we've run out. Epictetus, who spent years enslaved before teaching others about freedom, understood the weight of invisible burdens better than most. He taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But here's what often gets missed. Your reaction can include saying, "I need help." Your reaction can include admitting, "I can't carry this alone." That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's recognizing what's actually within your control, asking for what you need instead of trying to control the impossible, carrying everything forever without breaking. And when we don't understand this, when we keep carrying in silence because no one asks if we're okay, we don't become stronger. We become hollow. And hollow things eventually collapse. It's like being a bridge that everyone crosses but no one maintains. Day after day, footsteps wear you down. Weight after weight, stress fractures appear. But because you're still standing, because you haven't collapsed yet, everyone assumes you're fine. Until one day, without warning, you're not. And everyone is shocked They never saw it coming. But you felt every crack forming, and you didn't know how to say it out loud. What if the silence around your struggle isn't because people don't care, but because you've taught them not to ask? What if your performance of strength has been so convincing that no one can see through it anymore? What if you've made it so easy for them to take from you that they've forgotten you have limits too? What are you still proving by never admitting you're not okay? What old belief are you protecting that says your worth depends on your capacity to carry everything? What permission do you need to give yourself to be human instead of heroic? Marcus Aurelius wrote something that cuts through all our careful pretending. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your exhaustion is not the obstacle to your strength. Your silence about it is. The very thing you think protects your image is destroying your peace. What stands in the way of real connection, your refusal to be vulnerable, becomes the way through it. Maybe you're afraid that if you admit you're struggling, people will see you differently, that they'll lose respect for you, that they'll stop depending on you. And without that dependence, what value do you have? Maybe you think being needed is the closest thing to being loved. And if you stop being strong, you'll stop being seen at all. But here's what's actually happening. You're disappearing anyway. Not because you asked for help, but because you never did. The person you actually are, the one who gets tired, who needs support, who sometimes breaks, has been erased by the role you play. And the people around you don't know the real you anymore. They know the version that never needs anything. Seneca, who counseled emperors and understood the crushing isolation of responsibility, wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The rejection you fear if you show weakness, you're already experiencing it. You're already alone with your pain. The only difference is you're choosing it by staying silent instead of risking that someone might actually care if you spoke." No one checks on the strong one because the strong one never taught them they should. And that's not your fault. But it is within your control to change. You don't need to keep carrying everything alone to prove you're strong. You're allowed to say, "I'm not okay right now." You're allowed to need the same support you give so freely to others. You're allowed to teach people that checking on you isn't optional. That strength doesn't mean you don't struggle, it means you struggle too. You're allowed to stop performing in vulnerability and start practicing honesty. You're allowed to be the strong one who also needs help sometimes. Those things aren't contradictory. They're human. Real strength isn't about never needing anyone. It's about building a life where you don't have to pretend you don't. It's about being strong enough to admit when you're not. It's about understanding that being someone's rock doesn't mean you can't have your own foundation. The people who truly love you don't need you to be invincible. They need you to be real. And if your vulnerability makes them uncomfortable, that tells you something important about the relationship, not about your worth. If you do nothing else, you might try this. Reach out to someone and say, "I need to talk. I'm not doing great." Not asking for solutions, not apologizing for needing support, just stating the truth. "I'm the strong one, and I'm not okay right now." That small act, that moment of letting someone see you, is where real strength lives. Not in carrying everything alone, in trusting that you don't have to. Peace doesn't come from being strong enough that you never need anyone. It comes from being brave enough to need people anyway. It comes from understanding that you don't have to earn the right to be cared for by being endlessly capable. That your value isn't measured by how much you can carry without breaking, that being the strong one doesn't disqualify you from being the vulnerable one too. When you stop performing strength and start practicing honesty, when you teach people that you need them to check on you too, you make space for something you've been missing. The relief of being known, the freedom of being seen, the peace of finally putting something down. You don't have to be everyone's foundation while standing on nothing yourself. You never did. True strength is knowing when to carry and when to ask someone else to hold it for a while. True wisdom is understanding that even bridges need support beneath them. True courage is being the strong one who's brave enough to say, "I need you to be strong for me today." And the moment you give yourself permission to be human, fully, messily, imperfectly human, that's when you discover what the Stoics knew all along: that asking for help doesn't make you weak. Pretending you don't need it does. If you are tired of performing and ready to start living with ancient clarity, join us. Subscribe to Stoic Mindshift, and let's build a life that is as unshakable as those who came before us. You don't have to carry the weight alone anymore. The strong ones need someone to check on them too. And it's okay to be the one who finally says it out loud.